What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more acid-techno. And we're back with another tune from my wonderful friend Pete under his Bad Boy Pete persona. This comes from his 2025 I Bring You the Future EP on Chris Liberator's Acid Artist in Action, or AAA label. And yes, this tune, Acid Colombia, I think is maybe the most celebrated on the EP. I've certainly seen a number of people comment to that effect online. My understanding is that Chris, or Chris Liberator in particular, has been using this tune in a number of his sets. So yes, that's always a stamp of quality, I would say. And it has all the hallmarks of a classic Bad Boy Pete tune, meaning it has driving, chugging percussion, it has excellent acid flourishes, it has that overall warehouse acid techno type of vibe. It also features a Spanish language, I think there might be some English in it too, but definitely some Spanish language female vocal sample, which I'm guessing is from someone who's Colombian. I don't know for sure because I don't know the source of the sample, but that would be my estimation given the title of the track. But honestly, it's a fantastic cracking tune. I used it in my most recent what are they called? Piratical acid techno mixes, or mix, which is to say I have a video series of mixes called Piratical Acid Techno, which is very much marauding, having it style acid techno, and in the previous mix I used all AAA tunes, including this track, and I believe a couple people commented on it specifically, so yes, even within my channel this is a tune that has gotten a nice response. So big shout out to Pete, love you buddy. Let's listen to your tune, Acid Colombia, from his 2025 EP, I Bring You the Future, on Chris Liberator's AAA or Acid Artist in Action label. Listen to all the intricate percussion that's coming. Smash snare ride cymbal. I love that section. So I feel like, acid work can take many shapes and forms, even specifically within the world of UK or London style acid techno. And different producers have slightly different acid dialects, if you will. And I feel like Pete's acid language is one of my very favorites because there's always so much energy in the conversation of his acid work. There's a lot going on in it, and not only does it have a baseline of this continual energy and rapid fire foundation, but then it'll flourish and flare on top of that, and the accents will, rise up like the tip of a flame, so that there's like a foundation or a bedrock of acid heat, but then particular moments where you can just hear, or in my weird brain, see the little acid flare-ups and the flourishes, and then it goes into the next measure and the process starts again. And so I think that is very much the case here. Now he makes you wait for a little bit. The acid doesn't start right away, which I like the way this tune builds. I like at the beginning there's this shuffling type of percussive sound, which almost sounds like it's falling. It's sort of like techno snow shuffling, and then it starts to get a little louder and it begins to fill out the space more, and we get those cycles of ride cymbal, double time ride cymbal in conjunction with that like smashing type of snare, like every other kick, which sometimes you get a snare, sometimes you get a clap. This feels like it's somewhere in between the two. It has a real smash to it. And yes, I love the way the ride cymbal flourishes and then it kicks into the new bar each time. And then eventually the acid comes in and instantly it gives the tune a sort of alien warehouse kind of feel. Again, it's like this futuristic acid dialect where there's a lot of energy, a lot of motion. But what I especially love, and I think it's I think it's noticeable particularly in the sections where the vocalist is doing those long melodic stretches or extensions, because that has a very human quality. It's a human voice singing a lovely little melody. And so when you have a futuristic alien or almost robotic style acid work in conjunction with a very human type of vocal, it gives it this really nice synthesis or blended quality of being down to earth and off in some other dimension at the same time. So I think that's especially the case again where she's singing, but I do like that sample in particular about, to all the other people in this movement or scene. I forget exactly what the term is, but she's like, this one is for you, which feels like it's a nice sample moment in the track, but it also feels meta. It feels like this is Pete's love letter to the international acid techno community, people in countries all around. And I've often said that acid techno, it's like one of those genres where in any given place it's still a pretty small minority of people who follow it, but in pretty much every place you go you'll find that sliver. So it's like an inch wide but a mile deep, if that makes sense. And that seems to be the case pretty much all over the world, which is why once I joined social media, I was late to the game. I didn't start a Facebook account until I think 2014, and I only started using SoundCloud a year or two before that. But I very quickly discovered by people who either friended me on Facebook or became, followers or subscribers to my SoundCloud account. They were from Japan and South Africa and different parts of Europe, South America, the Scandinavian countries. There were people all around the world who began following my channel, commenting on my mixes. Then I checked out their channels and I would see that not only were they mixing acid techno too, but they were using tracks by producers from all these different places. So when I hear a sample like that, again, it feels nice in the moment of the tune, but it also feels reflective of the larger acid techno world, which I think, and I'll have to confirm with Pete on this, but it feels like that's kind of the point he's making in that moment with the track, that this is a shout out to all those around the world who are part of this acid scene. So yeah, I think it's a really lovely tune sonically, and the heart of the tune, which again feels a bit futuristic and humanistic at the same time, I think it's just in a really sweet spot. So it doesn't surprise me that this is a beloved tune. As I said, I think the whole EP is great. Of course, I'm a bit biased for the track that I was lucky enough to make with Pete, Standing Up, but ultimately I do very much think that any of the tunes would be worth buying this record for alone, which is always a good sign. Like there are some records over the years where there'll be 3 tunes and one of them is the tune that made me not be able to pass it up. Like I had to get it because of that tune. And maybe the other 2 never become a real favorite, though, as I've often said, sometimes I'll buy a record for one tune in particular, and a couple years later it turns out that a different track on the record, which I didn't pay much attention to at first, becomes my favorite. But even when that doesn't happen, if there's one tune that's just a can't miss, it's worth buying the record. So when you have 4 tracks on a record, all of which I think could qualify for that level of can't miss character, then I think you've really put together a good record, which is not only a testament to Pete's tracks, but also to the AAA label. Again, of the more recent Stay Up Forever sub-labels, it's probably my favorite. Again, Wah Wah is always going to be one of my favorites, and I think there are other really good ones too, including labels that are technically still Stay Up Forever, like Stay Up Forever, what is it called? The Stay Up Forever specials, I guess, where they've put out some, like acid dub releases, as well as like Leaders of the New Generation, where it's entirely producers of, that weren't necessarily making tunes in the 90s, weren't around in the 90s. So yes, I like all the Stay Up Forever sub-labels, but of the more recent ones, I think AAA is just, it's where the action is at. So big shout out to Pete, you are awesome, love you buddy. Big shout out to Chris Liberator, same to you. Shout out to all the folks who've been following my acid techno reactions. Let me know what you think of this tune, and I will see you next time. Peace.